Let's get the share screen. All right, we're just getting ready in a few minutes here. We've got Dawn and a special guest today for our usual live stream chat. How's everybody doing? Dawn, how's your week been, man? How's everything going? GM.
It's been good. Everything's been nice. The weather's been great. How about yourself?
Oh, the weather's been good. I've been working out on the new gym routine, starting to up the weights right now.
Nice.
And I
Staying in shape.
Oh, got some echo. Yeah, I've just been like, summertime, trying to cut and get on that grind,
Yeah, I hear you. You gotta stay healthy too. Like, we're always at the computers, I guess, always working. You gotta stay healthy too.
Yeah, especially like with all these like crazy prices right now. Everyone's super locked in, completely just 24/7 on the computer. I'm just like, trying to do a lot of long walks, but I'm still checking my phone, scrolling Twitter at the same time. I just need like sometimes on like today, Sunday, gotta turn off.
Yeah.
Like no coffee, right? The most you should do matcha, green tea, ice, that kind of stuff. All right, let's get this show on the road. So we have a couple of updates. I just wanted to kind of get those out of the way before we get to our main meat of the business today, which is a special guest, good friend of mine, Mercy. He started a really interesting initiative, which I think has actually been kind of missing in our space. And we're going to talk a bit about that and ask him a few questions how that's going. He's got a couple of exciting announcements as well. I'm just posting this on our Discord right now and our Telegram group. I need one button basically to push to all platforms. Like, this is like crazy. I'm like copy pasting links all over. All right. Okay. Yeah, so hope everyone's doing well. What's Solana at? Like 200, 190? When are we going to see 280 all-time high again, you think?
Hopefully this month, by the end of this month.
Yeah, ETH is pumping, guys. We gotta get the show on the road. So quick updates. We published a research paper on do token buybacks work, and I think that's been like really center of attention with a lot of Believe ecosystem apps, which is something that I should probably ask Mercy in a bit. But do check it out. It's basically our look into Hyperliquid, Radium, and a few other ecosystems in which buybacks have been consistently the main thing. Pumped Up Funds also doing buybacks as well. Like, do they really work, right? What kind of mechanisms are these founders using? And is it programmatic? Is it sporadic? Is it more like an announcement, PR related thing? Or is it one-sided single liquidity? A lot of different ways. And which parts are more effective than others, and when should you? So if you're a founder and you're interested. Like, okay, should I build a flywheel with my current app or ecosystem with my token? How do I make it so that the price sustains where I'm not just burning treasury runway? Do go check it out. And my DMs are always open to answer any questions. I'd love to talk to you more about if you guys are considering buybacks, how you're thinking about them, and work together on that. Yash, my good friend from Send AI, has pushed out this crypto AI thesis, and I think it has a lot of really interesting kind of forward-looking things in the AI space with crypto. And he's always been very pragmatic, like say, like not super mid-curvy, early insights. Really good article to check out. A lot of the things that he's mentioned, even back a couple months, has really come to fruition. And Meteora has been doing their first LP Army bounty. I'm sure everyone's already seen this on their timelines. I'm just like broken record at this point. But Huma is actually a project I've been following for a while. They were at like a 75 mil valuation, and they're doing trade financing, which is like the first PayFi platform on Solana. I guess the interesting thing here is with USDC rewards, Circle was actually doing something like this a few months back with EuroC. So, there's USDC and there's also the Euro version. So they were given like 50, 100K EuroC rewards for farming and providing LP to those pools. So this is actually, I guess, not the first time they've done LP Army bounties, but it's the first way that they've kind of positioned it or marketed as an LP Army bounty. And that's quite interesting. I've been tracking the TVLs a little bit, posted this last week. Now, I know there's like a big drop in basically last Tuesday, Wednesday, but that's actually the team taking out just Huma tokens. That's not like affecting the price in any way. They're just taking Huma tokens from like top of the range, totally out of range stuff. And they didn't take out any USDC. So, but from the announcement, which is August 20th to August 21st, we see a modest bump. I'm going to continue tracking this to see if like these LP rewards or bounties are making a significant impact to TVL, and how many fees people are generating. So just tracking that. If you're first time here, we're the team behind Ultra LP. It's an app to help you track your LP positions throughout the Meteora ecosystem. Meteora supports things like Believe app, which is like the Launchcoin ecosystem. And our tool basically helps LPs to manage, incur less loss, and hopefully lock more profits. We're currently in open beta. If you wanted to come in and check it out, provide liquidity yourself, earn fees not through trading, but through other people trading, come check us out. You can request for a beta access code just with your Solana wallet and just DM me. Anyways, that stuff is out. Let's go to the main event. I am excited to bring in my good friend Mercy from ICM.RUN. Hey, what's up, man? How's it going?
Hey there.
Hey there. Hey there. How's your week been, man? Oh, you're on mute, Mercy. Mercy, you're on mute.
Really, really good. Busy week. I snuck away this weekend to go camping because I figured after this week, there's no shot that I'm ever getting away from what I'm about to launch just because of the momentum it's already created. I could already tell that I'm going to be locked in every hour of the day, probably for like the rest of this year. I was talking to my girlfriend about it. I was like, yeah, probably this weekend's going to be our last shot to like really take a break before things really heat up. So I just got back from camping, feeling good, feeling refreshed, feeling ready for the gauntlet that's coming.
You got a big responsibility on your shoulders for this week. Can you tell me a little bit about like how you came by this idea and what made you want to start it?
Yeah, for sure. I think quite simply, I'm an operator. I'm a builder. I'm a product builder. I built a couple different SaaS products in the past, and I've been in Web3 since 2022. And since 2022, I was always telling myself like, yeah, RWA is a cool category. Like I see that like back in 2022, it was like real estate on chain, and like these narratives like RWAs came in. And I was always kind of, curious why so many like Web2 startup founders were so sidelined, you know what I mean, from like the Web3 space. And, I'd heard of these rumblings of like tokenization, like startup tokenization, and they were like really novel and new in 2022. And frankly, they just weren't really thought through yet, and there wasn't an appetite really for them. The appetite for those types of opportunities really came from more institutional side of crypto, not from like your trader scanning Axiom migrations or Photon or BullX migrations, right? So like the free public liquidity wasn't, or retail liquidity wasn't really available yet. So I walked away from that startup of mine this past March. And I was, I wasn't ready to jump back in the saddle just yet, start a whole new startup just yet. So I went to one of my buddies who had built a very simple software, but very complex, very high security software for managing XDMs. I'd helped him get a lot of customers over the time because we've been friends. And I was like, brother, let me come work for you. I'll work for like $750 a month. I'm bored. I'm just trading all day. I need to like keep these skills sharp because, one thing you learn quickly as like a founder, if like you're not kind of like using the skills you built, you're losing them, So I was like, let me just like stay in the saddle. I helped him build up product strategy and a bunch of cool stuff. And I was watching Believe app. I was paying attention to that whole narrative. Much to some people might disagree, I really am still very bullish on. I helped him tokenize. It went so phenomenally. I mean, it really just like blew past our expectations on how well it went. And I decided to test it again, was successful again. The next thought that came through my head after that was, the natural inclinations like, oh yeah, you start an agency, an advisory firm, you help Web2 go to Web3. That was like all the craze of like 2022 and 2023. But I've been a DAO fund maxi for a minute, and I have been very bullish on that ecosystem, and I bid most of the coins from that ecosystem to a fault, for a lack of better words. And after speaking with some individuals, we kind of just realized that the rails that like Web2 startups need to be successful in Web3 isn't just an issuance. It's not just in like releasing a token and dropping a token in there. There's a lot more that goes into it. So we decided to do this very passion project in April called ICM.RUN. It was originally called Acquisitions.Fund. That was the original name, kind of like on the play on Alex Hormozy's concept. And I was like, this is a complete passion project. I'm going to pull in like 2 or 3 friends, 4 friends that I've successfully built with in the past, and have worked with in the past. And, things were moving quick. The people I was sharing with really liked it and kind of started getting some momentum. So I'm like, okay, we'll expand it a little bit further. I must have DM'd, and anybody who's like a founder knows how this feels. I must have DM'd like 60 of my founder friends. I got like 10 responses all in. Project Crypto drops. All of those people are all now hitting me back. If you don't know about Project Crypto, it's just basically SEC released, some regulatory documents and framework for essentially destigmatizing and desecuritizing, for lack of better words, most tokens on chain, which is a big issue. I have a lot of exposure to that. I was working at Animoca Brands when Sandbox got that doc sent to them. So I'm very familiar with that whole process. And when I saw that, all of my really smart founder friends blew up my DMs. ICM.RUN started gaining a lot of momentum, and it turned into this thing from me just like trying to convince a few really smart people to work on it to me now having to create like kind of gate it a little bit, make sure like I'm like really hand selecting key players for it and hand select. But that's essentially the inception of it, essentially.
Wow. Okay. So, wow. Okay. Interesting. So you actually came from like more of a traditional background, so you actually can understand what they're going through, as well as crypto. And so where do you see like the major challenges that these teams have, and where do you think ICM.RUN can support it?
I think it's like one of those like 2-second questions for like a 2-hour answer. The short answer is that there's a ton of nuance. And if we're talking about like Web2 founders joining the space, maybe they have like a little bag of XRP in some exchange. Yeah. They don't have much exposure to like the B2B side of this space and the infrastructure side of this space. They're not aware that, where to find conversations to talk about what they're building. They're not aware of like where to like present their product. They're also just not aware of like the risks that are prevalent when it comes to tokenizing as well. So the key places I really see us helping projects, frankly, is just helping them with one bulletproof rollout strategy. Products have been getting tokenized on chain for a very, very, very long time. This is not like something that new. And frankly, there's a bit of a playbook that's been established that most new founders, Web2 founders, aren't even aware about. And it's like complete amateur hour avoidance stuff that you can just prevent like from having a failed launch. So one thing ICM.RUN really serves is to ensure that we don't have really good Web2 founders join the space and get completely farmed by third parties that are trying to take advantage of this meta and then just leaving, and just saying this is all crypto is. It's a big scam. Had a story of a founder that tokenized not long ago. It was like number 2 or 3 in the App Store for a bit. Really cool product. And the person who helped them launch basically just farmed the project. I won't name names. I'm not here to, cause drama, but they basically farmed their launch. Rather, it was them directly or not indirectly. And this team would have had like, 6, 7, 8 million market cap. They would have done really well. They would have at least had a chance to learn. But after that experience, watching their chart do this and seeing their top traders who are making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 on this project, and they're walking away with their fees. You know what I mean? They're like, this sucks, and that's like such a negative experience that doesn't need to happen. And obviously with tokenization and project crypto, a lot of Web2 founders are a lot more open to tokenizing than they ever have been before. And what the real reality is these founders that just go and, partner with an FNF community or a trading community to tokenize, they're going to set themselves up for failure. And there needs to be a proper, guide, not just a course, not like a university, but a proper taking you from step 1. Step A to step Z, really, beyond just tokenizing, post-tokenization as well. And I know you have some exposure of that with some projects you've worked in the Believe app ecosystem. There's a lot of hand-holding that they need because, most teams, Web2 teams, when they hear Launchpad, they think accelerator, they think incubator, they think you're going to be in my meetings with me. You're going to review my documents. You're going to, make intros. You're going to help me bring this product to life. And that's not what a permissionless Launchpad is. You know what I mean? A permissionless Launchpad is a lot closer to like an Uber account than it is like an accelerator. You know what I mean? So seeing that most of these teams needed that type of support, it just felt like an obvious gap to fill.
There's a lot that goes into this whole thing that you're starting. Are you doing this yourself? Like, what's behind the whole thing and the whole initiative, and who are the people that you need to make this happen?
I think the main thing is like founders first, probably is like our key thing, right? So the mentors I've selected have a variety of experience of tokenization. So there's a few founders that have their own launch pads, like Yash from Send AI. I heard you guys mentioning him. Meta Alchemist from Seedify, who has a lot of experience with tokenization. We even have AZ Flynn from DAO's World, who also has a ton of experience with tokenization, not just on Solana, but also other chains as well. So like the mentor ecosystem, the predominant experience we're looking for are people who've tokenized either their own project directly, maybe like Collateralize has, and has properly tokenized his own project into the space as like a fair launch model, or they have experience with tokenizing other projects. But that nuance of experience of those different type of scenarios is really key when it comes to incubation, because frankly, you could have tokenized your own project, but that doesn't really give you the framework always to help other people tokenize their projects. There's a lot that goes into it.
And where do you think, like, okay, you've got this mentor community that are like of the top founders that are super experienced with the entire flow. You've got contributors who are there to kind of bring in other communities, other kind of pieces of information. Where do you want, what's the ideal outcome? Like ICM.RUN does this one thing really super well, and now it changes the space for the better because of XYZ. What's that one kind of outcome that we all should be hoping for?
The optimistic outcome is we see 40 more of these spin up during or after the process. That's the optimistic outcome. Frankly, there's enough gap here to fill that we need more incubators that are going to be incubating projects. And I think there's like twofold. I want to see more teams going the DAO approach, to help incubate projects. So just more incubators in general helping ICM projects. But I also want to inspire a lot of people who are doing like this type of advisory work or this marketing or bag working work to consider using more decentralized models like a DAO to be able to manage that entire composure. Frankly, if I was really going for like a max extraction here, we would just start an advisory firm. We'd probably take 80% of the fees. We'd probably take 20% of the supply, and we would just complete profit max this model out. And that has existed, frankly. It's frankly why I'm so turned off from advisory firms and agencies, because that's usually what you're getting to bed with in most cases. And I like the concept of the DAO because there's an alignment model. One of the things I really am excited about with ICM.RUN is that we're only going to be able to incubate max 30 projects during this entire process. So that leaves a lot of room on the table for plenty other people to create their own DAOs and try out their own thesis. I'm excited to see DAOs get spun up just for physical brands tokenizing. You know, I really like that concept of like the niched down DAO. And, you know, that optimistic outcome is that we see more DAOs spin up from this that are going to work this. I would love to be an investor in a lot of those types of DAOs if they're good teams. And of course, the degen mind goes, can we help a project hit that crazy valuation, that crazy market cap? Can we take that really good team and introduce them to the market and do it the right way and give them the best potential legs? I never like to launch any project and try to imply that I'm hoping that a project hits a 1 billion market cap from this DAO. But I can tell you that we're going to not try to do that. We're 100% going to try our absolute hardest to help projects completely break through the attention sphere. And that's why we've pulled together this, like, you could say Avengers of different backgrounds of tokenization. Yeah, I think it's a good place to pause.
No, that's incredible. I think the question is then 30 projects, how I'm sure that once this kind of starts to run, you're going to get probably more than 30 projects that are going to be.
We already have more than 30 projects right now currently. Yeah.
So like, then the question is like, okay, how do you pick? And the community out there is watching, right? They're like seeing, okay, what are these 30 going to be? Who are going to be the ones that really break through that barrier and succeed? And we want to throw all the support behind that one. So how is that process looking like?
Yeah, it's a good point. So essentially the way it works is when projects apply to join the DAO after the DAO. Right now, there's like a pre-interest space where we're allowing some people who are interested before the DAO is launched to imply they're interested. Once the DAO is live, that would be simply a form application. The form application will be shared with a select group of mentors. We're not going to do every mentor vote every single time, but we'll align the mentors with their backgrounds. The mentors will vote on which projects come through the DAO and provide feedback for the yeses and the nos. If it's a unanimous no or a majority no, that feedback will be shared with the team. If the team is then selected, we'll then go forward with the incubation process with that team particularly. In many cases, we're going to be stuck choosing between like Coke and Pepsi. And it doesn't mean that Pepsi's bad or Coke is bad. It just means that we have a bandwidth component of this that we're not going to be able to control. And what I'll communicate publicly is that 80% of the projects that we launch will be startups like ICM teams looking to tokenize. And the other 20% will be ICM infrastructure, which could be trading terminals. We'll be putting out actually essentially kind of like a bounty of like ICM infrastructure projects that we want to apply to the DAO. And there's going to be a variety of those types as well. Like, for example, we'll be looking for teams covering InfoFi, particularly around ICM. I do think when I say optimistically 30, I do think there will be some scenarios where some of those 30 might be other DAOs we invest into, essentially, that have a specialization. And I hope to see that. I've been speaking to a few teams that are seeing what we're doing and think they could take a unique spin on this as well. And we'll want to back those other types of DAOs that have a similar type of mindset and type of appetite for ICM too.
How do you see this differing from something like a Alliance DAO, which is like one of the premier incubators?
Yeah.
And they have
I would say this is fully on chain. Yeah, this is fully on chain. That's the core component. I'm actually really grateful to say the last ICM project I backed actually is currently in the Alliance DAO, currently in their cohort. I have some exposure to that as well. And I think, Alliance DAO serves to help world-class teams. And I mean, let's just be very clear. No shot ICM.RUN holds the space next to Alliance. Alliance is the tip of the spear. I use Alliance products almost exclusively. I'm very, very bullish on all products that go through Alliance because they obviously have the best picks when it comes to teams that are really phenomenal at producing revenue. Pump Fun, Believe App, Dow's Fun. I mean, they're shot for shot the winners for a reason. And I think, if we have some scenario where we incubate a project through ICM.RUN that makes its way to Alliance, I mean, that's just kind of like an Xbox achievement pop up for me. It'd be amazing to pull that off. But frankly, the main core component of ICM.RUN is really actually just creating a fully on-chain advisory firm. And then the main thing is we will not be taking any equity positions with ICM.RUN, which is something that we're currently very bullish on from the ICM.RUN ecosystem. All the mentors, all the contributors are all buzzing over this concept of equities issuance, and something I'm very bullish on too. But the ICM.RUN itself will actually not directly interact with any types of equity issuance products whatsoever. And we will be sharing those opportunities among this DAO, among this watering hole of interested parties as they come along, but they themselves will not be directly incubated. One thing we don't want to do is grandfather the entire DAO into prison to the next term. So we want to make sure we approach the equities components, which is something that's really important to us, very carefully. But that's going to be a really fun conversation when we get to that conversation.
If I may just like double click on that a little bit, because I'm a little bit not lost here. I'm just like misunderstanding this. Are you saying that like ICM.RUN is not going to have a percentage of tokens from these projects that are launching on ICM.RUN? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, we will. So we will have a percentage of their tokens.
Oh, okay.
What I'm referring to is proper equity, like a legal framework of equity.
Oh, the corporate equity.
Corporate equity.
Oh,
yes.
I see.
Yeah.
Is that because of a regulation thing, or?
Well, the good news is not necessarily no. It's not necessarily because there isn't a regulatory component. I think there isn't a what's the word I'm looking for? A legal framework currently that I believe will exist 6 years from now yet. But I do believe that legal framework that exists 6 years from now will exist in about 2 to 3 months, essentially. And what I really mean by that is there will be opportunities that come through ICM.RUN that will be utilizing newly written and cutting edge legal frameworks, we could say, to allow companies to do equities issuance, however that looks. There's a lot of philosophical debate around that right now. There's like a hot topic at the moment. So I'm not going to say like how we plan to approach it, but I can say confidently right now, anybody that's in the equities tokenization business that's been in it for the last 3 years, they are all flying back to the US right now, and they're all setting up legal entities. A few of our contributors that are a part of this DAO are currently writing those frameworks right now, like currently helping teams write that legal framework right now. And what I'm excited for is like that legal framework gold standard that almost every other launch pad is just going to frankly copy and utilize themselves. While it doesn't exist yet, I feel very confident that in 2 to 3 months it will.
So the question that I think a lot of ICM related projects previous to ICM.RUN that I had for them was, how does your Web2 company drive value to your token? Is it, we know that attention matters, but we also know maybe money talks. So is there, because the way it's structured, it seems like, is that their businesses need to drive value to their token, and ICM.RUN holds some of that token. And so the better that these businesses do, the better their token performs, the better ICM.RUN's token performs. Is that the correct way to think about this?
I don't know if there is a correct way. And I think that's what's really cool about building a new industry and a new niche. We're at a standstill on a philosophical debate because there hasn't been a gold standard yet. So anything that you and I talk about is really speculation. If you ask me about companies putting their revenue into their own token, I would tell you as a trader that it's priced in most cases. And it's priced into the market cap in most cases. The value, and this is somebody, I'm a very active trader. I put my hours in. I was trading while I was camping today. I put my hours in for sure. And that's really just to stay ahead of the culture. I've been playing with some projects that recently released from the Meteor ecosystem. And one of the projects that rolled out was like a concept where there's like a king of the hill, five coins get released. The one coin that survives gets the liquidity from the other coins pumped into it.
Oh.
The interesting thing about that is when you look at the chart looks like we're just looking on a flat horizontal line here. You see it go up, and then literally the millisecond of liquidity goes back down. It goes right back down to where the baseline floor originally was, whatever it was 8 hours ago. And the reason for that is because traders are smart. If I know you're going to be doing a liquidity injection, it's going to get front run. And if you know there's a schedule for that liquidity integration, it will always get priced in at front run. Most cases, though, that will always be the case. So companies that come up with a automated framework, which I'm assuming they'll want to do, I don't think they want to hire somebody just to put the money in randomly, you know what I mean, whenever they could, or create new wallets to put the money into, like secretly sneak liquidity into the chart from their revenue. In most cases, it will always just sort of get priced in. And there's some debate. There's a lot of debate right now. And there's teams that have been doing this, by the way. And again, we haven't yet really seen that breakout flywheel model that seems to hold as much value as attention seems to. And because of that, I will not, with ICM.RUN, be so focused on projects integrating their revenue into their token. We'll be exploring it, but when it comes to that concept, I'm inherently mostly bearish. These companies need revenue to survive. They need money coming in, and they need to accumulate as much revenue as possible for them to have runway. Crypto especially is a gauntlet, and it's a game of survival. It's a winners take all game where repeat winners win more. And it's a game of survival. If you run out of runway, no one's going to be talking about your project if you're not, So for me personally, I am going to be paying a lot of attention to that. We will be exploring it, but I will not be promising it, mainly because there's actually has inherently never been a project that's like a Web 2 startup with a Web 2 revenue source that's not on chain that has integrated that revenue into their token, where we've seen a strong outcome, an outcome that we would deem as favorable. You know what I mean? I'll be paying close attention and I'll be monitoring the situation, and if we do find that gold standard, the only reason we wouldn't do it is if it didn't work. You know what I mean? So if it works, we would do it. And I think that it comes down to a lot of things philosophically in crypto, that if there was something that always worked every single time, everyone would just be doing that, But since we don't know, a lot of this is experimentation, and ICM.RUN will be a big experimenter.
I, for one, am very hoping that there is some sort of system in here in which the better that the company does, the better the token does. And I've been pushing that idea, and I know it hasn't been proven. It hasn't shown enough, there's not enough data to even support that, but I'm hoping there's something out there that some team can create.
I'm hoping so too. I think we're going to find that. I really do. I'm optimistic it's equity. I'm optimistic that it's going to be making better bets on teams that have the ability to exit or raise. And I think that inherently is something I'm bullish on. I think there's a couple edge cases I like. KOL scan is a good one. I was like transaction 30 in KOL scan. Sold my bags because, it's stuck at 100K for... Yeah. So KOL scan was a utility project that's designed for tracking traders essentially on chain. And it launched on Pump Fund. It was a cool product. Everyone really used it. But frankly, even though a ton of people used it, this token never really caught much momentum ever, despite that. Pump Fund acquired them. You can go check the chart on the date on that valuation of what happened then. The cool thing about that is it validated that acquisitions off-chain seem to have very high impact on-chain. If the team that's doing the acquisition, it has a lot of attention. So there's a lot of these, I guess you could say, melting pots of if you don't know the ingredients, you don't know how to recreate it. You know what I mean? And I can't really say with confidence that, that really even was an off-chain acquisition, or if they just gave them the gave them the X account to pump fund. I don't really know how professional that actual acquisition was, but
Yeah.
one thing I'm very bullish on is the concept of ICM projects tokenizing on chain and exiting off chain, and the ability to integrate some type of token or some type of equities issuance to those teams. There's a really cool team right now that is already kind of ahead of this called MetaDAO. They're a really, really cool team. I like Profit a lot. Have you heard of MetaDAO before?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing some pretty cool stuff right now. I would say they're kind of like another edge case of a team that's like experimenting right now with like equity sharing. I think like I had a cool conversation with him one time, and like one of the things I challenged him around like equities tokenization was like, let's say hypothetically you have a DAO and someone approaches you wanting to acquire your company, right? Well, in order for you to get acquired, the whole DAO needs to vote on it. So in a way, it's always going to be priced in. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Like, if you're a member of a DAO, and let's say a company wants to acquire the DAO, right? And when they exit, you're going to make, X amount of dollars, right? It's pretty fair to assume most people are going to, from the DAO are going to inside trade their own token in that case. So there's a lot of this type of like, what's it called? Like debating going on right now around tokenized acquisition. But I think we're getting to a really good point with it. I think like in 2 to 3 months, we're going to find what that gold standard is. And even then, like you can't really call it a gold standard until we've seen it go from start to finish. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
From the point of equity issuance to the point of equity sold. You know what I mean? So we're going to see. And I'm excited to experiment with it for sure. And I'm also very, very bullish on a concept where a project and company's value gets fairly distributed on chain. And I think there's a lot of products that do a good job with that. I think Time.Fun is an example of that. You can go trade time coins on Axiom, on Dex Screener, wherever you like to trade them. But if you trade them on Time.Fun, it visualizes the value differently, right? You get access to things on that particular product's interface, right? I think that that's a big gap for ICM. And I think that is a more important of a gap to fill, which is the visualization of the value of that token instead of inherently the revenue components as well. There are many startups that are going to exist in the space that will not produce revenue, but they'll produce attention. And like viral app store products are great examples of that. Viral social products are great examples of that will lack revenue and need a long-term moat to be able to get to that stage where the revenue is positive, right? And I think crypto will be an amazing home for them. But if we make the gold standard revenue injection, most of these teams will get priced out of the space. And I think that that's something like, it isn't a one size fit all. Sorry for the rant, but yeah.
Can I ask you a kind of a hard question around how you see the incentive structure of the contributors and mentors in this thing?
Of course.
Like, how do we know as a community that maybe the mentors aren't front running us, or we're all kind of in a fair situation? But you also need to incentivize people to work in the DAO, right? Like, how are you thinking around that as kind of the coordinator of everything?
I won't call myself the coordinator. I'll call myself the organizer. We do have a general manager. His name's Dreadsong. I've known him for a long, long time. We had a lot of experience working with him when he was a DAO maker, and I've worked on a lot of launchpad tech with him indirectly. This guy has like been like a low-key, high-impact guy when it comes to like the launchpad era of 2022 to 2024, particularly. Not this new era of launchpads that have come out that are more permissionless. And the shorter answer is, the reason why I'm going a DAO approach is because I really don't need the help of every single mentor, of every single contributor. And frankly, a small team of 3 to 4 high impact individuals can have really good impact on a project that's seeking to tokenize. And frankly, my goal at ICM.RUN, when I finish this, if the thesis is correct, I'll probably go a syndicated DAO after ICM.RUN is finished, and we'll go a more traditional investment, because the goal, of course, is to get to token equities issuance, and that's really what I would like to get into in my next venture after ICM.RUN kind of closes its doors, or we ramp down a little bit. The concern around front running Valid, I think the way I created the incentive structure for the mentors is I chose a lot of mentors where the value of the tokens of the projects we incubate grossly are undervalued compared to their current day jobs, day businesses. I've been grateful for that. Like even Yash is probably just going to donate everything he gets from this because he's also just wants to be in the watering hole of the conversation of what is new for ICM. And I think a lot of people who are attracted to ICM.RUN are mostly people who are interested in being in the broader watering hole discussion and being close to where like the innovation discussion is happening and just wanting to stay close to that. And I will of course admit everyone here that's in crypto wants to make profit. I assume, I assume most people are crypto because they like this financial technology. And I'll admit that, of course, that's the goal, is to create value with the DAO. There will be many cases where we don't launch on Believe app either. We launch on like a permission launch pad as well. I think the main thing I want to communicate to like contributors and mentors is we're going to engage with 30 projects max. There will be hundreds, if not thousands, of opportunities that come through ICM.RUN that are available to mentors and contributors exclusively, that will not get incubated at all by ICM.RUN, will not directly go through our doors, get directly incubated. And there's a lot of edge case scenarios where there's just projects that aren't going to be a good fit for ICM.RUN. And most of them are going to be the tokenization of equities types of products that we would directly have to incubate. And the goal of ICM.RUN is just to share those opportunities, those investment opportunities around with these individuals in this community. Some scenarios that we're going to be looking for are going to be, Web2 startup teams that are coming from hedge funds that have high revenue. So we have a few like different mentors that are going to be helping us partner with a few traditional Web2 hedge funds that own majority or all stake in a few of their other subsidiaries or portfolio that are looking to tokenize. We will be likely for those types of projects be seeking brands that have brand equity, like as an already are well-known, wouldn't say household, but potentially household name type of brands. And when it comes to like a scenario where a mentor or a contributor could potentially like front run retail, the moment a project goes through our incubator, the entire mentor and contributor ecosystem is already going to be aware of that project. It's going to be my responsibility and I guess you could say the working group's responsibility to create a launch scenario that is as unsnipeable as possible. That in of itself deserves its own live stream conversation, because that's like one of those types of talks where we can get into the real nitty gritties of like how you, I can't come up with the words, like obfuscate or like confuse individuals into like what the launch is. And there's like a whole cultural history of fair launches that have had to create these very funny scenarios to be able to get their project out, fair launched into the ecosystem without it getting giga sniped or front ran or taken advantage of, frankly. And I've been on a few of those launches that have been taken advantage of, and I've been on a lot more that haven't. So I have some ideas around that, but that's a fun talk for sure.
Yeah, we should have a conversation about that. You mentioned that these Web2 companies don't want to see the Christmas tree whole thing, and so
of course not.
Yeah, the sniper front running thing.
Only farmers want to see a Christmas tree happen, and that is the biggest issue for ICM at the moment. Is farmers. Yeah. There are more people approaching Web2 founders to help them tokenize that are bad for them than there are good for them, for lack of better words. Right. And there's a few scenarios where we've already seen some like Web2 startup founders that run startup communities help a bunch of people tokenize, and rather they themselves are farming or someone close to them is farming, some advisor that's close to them is farming, it's just setting them up for failure. And I've been on a few teams now, and many of the mentors, Studholm would tell you himself, he's one of our mentors here. He's even had a few of his projects farmed out by people that claim to be advisors, claim to be this, claim to be that. And you really realize that the best thing you could do when it comes to tokenizing is to tell as little as people about it as possible if you have something amazing. And it's hard for people who've never tokenized to know what is amazing or what is really, really good or what is going to get priced in really great. And that inherently creates this this challenge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it sounds like you've curated mentors that are very value aligned, and that are kind of focused on, I guess, their skin in the game is in the DAO, contributing to the DAO.
Yes.
So that's kind of like how we could make this whole thing more equitable. I mean, just to bring up kind of like the other side of things, like these projects are being front run by these other less fair actors anyway. And so to have a positive force, a public, a unifying force, a more equitable force through a DAO, where anyone can contribute, is like already far greater, fairer system than what we have right now, and which is fair, basically front run by invisible actors or less than known actors. So I agree with you there. It sounded like, ICM.RUN is this great experiment. It's got a lot of backing. It's got a lot of support. And you're also thinking like, after this finishes, like there's a next iteration. Can you tell us about what that's going to be? Like you mentioned there's like a, 2.0 or like an equity based thing, right?
Yeah. Well, if anybody knows what I'm bullish most about, it's about tokenization of equity. I think that creates such a stronger alignment for bigger players in the space. There's like a huge sideline community, and there's so much to get into with ICM.RUN, and one of the biggest ones is that there's an on-trade trading community that has a huge appetite for utility projects on chain. And there's this legacy community of teams that have been building utility projects on chain, but they had to launch in an era where there wasn't retail. So they had to launch with VC backing, syndicated DAOs, I could get into that whole ecosystem, but that whole ecosystem is completely sidelined from this newer on-chain, fully decentralized fair launch mechanisms that exist. So, one of the big things I see this big gap in right now is that there's massive appetite from traditional investment DAOs for these types of projects to get involved with them. There's a misalignment though. I mean, frankly, for a syndicated DAO let's talk about like a micro fund, so like a $20 to $50 million crypto fund, very micro fund by fund standards, right? They can't quantify setting someone in front of Axiom all day studying migrations for ICM coins, right? They can't quantify that. You know what I mean? And if it's not quantified by the returns, it's also not quantified by the stake in terms of like what they're getting out of this project. Currently, there's this bleeding edge right now that's getting built right now about what should early contributors, early buyers get exposure to in this project for being early believers, right? Mm-hmm. And how can you create a scenario where you can have this huge network of syndicated DAOs getting exposure to these types of tokens without completely recreating the 2021 and rather the 2018 scenario where VCs just dump tokens into the public? And what I think that's going to be likely is going to be longer locks, higher equity type of scenarios. And I'm even excited to see how Meteora use cases of fees get created. I spoke with a team recently that applied for the DAO that's building some really cool technology. I won't leak their edge case for it, but they're experimenting a lot with early buyers of tokens, being able to get exposure to the fees the project generates instead of having to dump these tokens into the public markets to get their upside, right? So creating a better, longer runway for the project. I know that's like a really long answer, but I think I'm just trying to say is that, again, we don't really know what that multi-billion dollar protocol is going to be in 6 years, right? But I do think we're really, really, really close. We will know before the end of this year for sure.
Can you shine some light into one project that you're very bullish about, that is from this ICM thing? You don't have to name names, but
yeah, there's many. I hold stake in quite a few different ICM coins. Not to shill tokens, but I'll show Viva, really cool team, based in South America. They're doing some really, really cool stuff. They have a huge ecosystem of basically I don't want to go too deep into them because I'm not going to use this space. There's so many. What should we say? There's a lot of really good ICM teams. So let's just get that out the way, and they're all of varying sizes. This is all startups, all right. But Viva is an example of a team that's already very high revenue, long history of success, physical locations, physical equity in those locations, very successful on like a Web 2 standard basis, right? They're in the service providing space for like internet and mobile servicing in South America. And one thing I think that they're an example of is like a really opportune type of ICM project joining the space. And I think that's like another really good example of a team that probably could have also used a lot of help with their tokenization strategy too. They're like an example whenever someone asks me for like, why should a team consider like equity? Why should a team consider this or that? It's like, if you already have, in most cases, if you already have like the donut factory, it doesn't make sense for you to submit to a donut consumer. You should be working with larger institutions that back larger donut shops. And I know that's like a weird analogy, but in most cases, fair launching means extreme devaluation of your project or company or startup if you've already reached a really high pinnacle. So we haven't, again, really said we really haven't really met that one size fits all scenario just yet. But I'm very bullish on getting there, and I think there's a lot of teams that are very, very close to it. And I think like another type of scenario that I really like right now when it comes to ICM teams, or teams that like have a trader as a user use case. Inbox app is a really good example of that. Like, they're a Twitter-based inbox and DM manager tool. Every major Web3 company is already a customer. When they tokenized, all these traders hopped into it, started shilling it below creator KOL accounts, and their MRR took off because of that, because they're getting this secondary type of like synergistic steam effect that you get from a nuclear facility, right? They figured out a way to like create like a third party value, out of the token, which I'm very, very bullish on, is like traders as a user type of scenario. Time.fun is a great example, is trader as a user. Tribe.run is a great example of trader as a user type of scenario. There's a really phenomenal concept called PLA, product-led user acquisition, that I'm very, very bullish on. And if you're like a grinder type of bootstrap founder, how you go and create this viral product is being able to have a scenario where your product leads to more user acquisition. And token holders as a user for PLA is massive, and it's mostly understood. And if you want to talk about a team that understands it, Alliance Style understands PLA. They understand token as a user, as a concept. It's like a really crazy concept that most early stage startup founders don't get exposure to. But if you've ever had to bootstrap something to hundreds of thousands of users, like PLA is like how you get there. And token as a user with the PLA framework is massive. So I obviously really like that. WOM is another example, called word of mouth, token as a user concept. Any type of product where your token holder fits your ICP as a user, quite simply.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So token as user, PLA. Those are terms to say that the token holder is one of the users of the product.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So they're interesting. So they're both the user, but also almost like equities, not equity, but like they have the token as well, and they can use the product. Does the token have to be in the product, or they can be separate? It doesn't matter.
I think that is one of those bleeding edge conversations. Right?
Okay.
If everybody had the answer, if everybody had the answer for that, we would be so much further ahead. But I'm excited. I'm excited to experiment a ton with that. We're going to experiment an absolute ton. One of the main things we'll be looking for when people apply is that for teams that are tokenizing, we will be looking for those examples where the token holder has some type of use case in this product beyond just hoping it does well, or hoping that the team injects their revenue into the token exclusively. Yeah. I want to really see that shine. I really want to see some more PLA, and I think we will.
What do you think is the so the projects that you guys are incubating, these are all pre-TGE projects, or are some of them already have a token?
So there's a section in our docs for this, but I would call it a disclaimer. Putting your tokens in our DAO does not guarantee incubation. I think I need to start getting really comfortable saying that. Yeah. But I want to be very clear. To putting your post-TGE tokens in our DAO does not guarantee incubation. The mentors still have to select them. If you are post-TGE, you can apply for this incubator, essentially. The mentors will vote on it. And it really will come down to if these mentors or contributors have levers to provide value to those projects. We will not be seeking teams to put their tokens in the DAO to align with the DAO, or just align with the conversation that we're having, or align with the rails that we've created exclusively. An example that would be like, you know, a new launch pad that tokenized, it doesn't have projects to launch in their launch pad yet. We've been approached by a few of these that want to put their tokens in our DAO. So this way we shill their launch pad to new launches. No shot. They're going to have to apply to the mentorship. You know, they'll have to apply just like every other project does. And if the mentors accept them, we'll go through the standard process we go through with any project, essentially. It's hard for me to say which will happen more. But since, you know, the only examples we have of this right now are off-chain, it's hard to say what will happen with the DAO. The example of the off-chain would be AI16Z. If you're around for that whole run, a lot of projects tokenized, put a lot of their supply and those tokens into the DAO to say, oh, we put some tokens in AI16Z's wallet. Personally, for me, I'm not a big fan of that as like a marketing strategy. And I also don't want thousands of projects in my DMs after putting the tokens in our DAO and be like, oh, you know, and then that also like completely dilutes the value of the rails that we build. And I think we will see DAOs that get created for post TGE purposes for this exact thing. I'm happy with ICM.RUN to back any new DAO that seeks to do that, but we probably will not be putting that as our primary focus. Example of that could be like a really good post TGE team that is like really green to Web3, that just really needs to be around really smart founders, really smart mentors. You know, I think like examples could be like launch pads. They're good examples of post TGE products that probably would do well in this type of DAO environment, because obviously we're not going to be able to take 30 projects. Thousands of projects will apply if they're a part of our DAO. We're just going to refer projects to whatever launch pads are in our ecosystem, regardless. Many of the mentors and contributors are going to be a part of this DAO also to get exposure to other types of ICM deal flow, for sure. For example, most of our mentors, their exposure to this DAO is not going to change their life. Their upside from their contribution to this DAO isn't going to be anything better than the 50th launch on their launch pad this week, right? It's mainly just to be around that watering hole discussion and innovation. But we will be taking some post TGE projects too.
Gotcha. Okay. In the last 5 minutes, I just wanted to give you a chance to maybe like tell our viewers, hey, what's the next thing that they should be paying attention to with ICM.RUN? What's happening next? What should we look out for?
Well, most of it's already kind of set. We'll be doing a PFP drop. It's already mostly whitelisted out, but we'll have about 700 to 800 in the public available for anybody who wants to get involved with that. I will tell you to join our Telegram community. One of the things we will be doing with projects that we incubate is we will be having them do airdrops and rewards to our PFP holder community. I'm a big believer in like an on-chain bag worker community. I'm an on-chain bag worker. And one thing I really, really love is aligning bag workers with projects I'm working on. So this NFT community is really going to be about people who want exposure to ICM, want to be able to have exposure to the conversation, but maybe they aren't a founder, maybe they're not a dev, maybe they never tokenized anything, but they're an active trader, they're active liquidity provider, they're actively looking for opportunities. This NFT project will probably be really good for you. It's a completely free mint, completely free. There's only 3,333 of these. 1% of the DAO will be fractionalized and claimable by this NFT selection as well too. That'd be like the next thing I would say. If you missed the DAO opportunity, if you wanted to get whitelist for this DAO particularly, we have completely closed our doors at this stage for like new contributors or new mentors. That NFT project would be your secondary market effects of this DAO essentially. And I would say that'd be a really good way for you to kind of stay in the loop as to like what's kind of happening in the internet capital market space. We'll be releasing a lot of research documentation as we go about ICM too, as we kind of carry the DAO forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, Samersi. It's been there's a lot of information out there, right? It's really great to be able to talk to you directly and like get the most insights from the project. And 50,000 tokens are launched each day, and there's way too much fractured attention. People don't know really what to look for. They're looking at runners and stuff. It's great that you're working on a curation process and a way to kind of bootstrap attention, but also helping actual teams build something in crypto. And I think that's going to be really good for everyone. From the side of our community, it's mostly on liquidity provision, market making. We'll be looking out for these launches and seeing how they do, and contributing in where we think is best, which is really to one part earning fees, but two supporting the token.
Yes.
Yeah,
We're
so
very excited to work with you at RPSAI too, with our projects that we're going to be launching. And I know one thing I was really stoked about is RPS came at very high respect and high suggestion from Soju, one of our mentors for the DAO too. One of the things I told him is that, there will be plenty of vibe coded projects that apply to the DAO. We'll refer them to Launchpads, but we're going to be also attracting some really high quality, high revenue teams that, frankly, the tokenization components are not going to be like a capital seeking model. It's going to be more about like new user models for them, and market making is key for those types of scenarios. I'm really stoked to be working with you guys on those projects when they come. And that's part of the contributor ecosystem, is aligning with the people who'll be helping our founders. You know what I mean? And one of the things that was really important to me when I built the contributor ecosystem was like, sure, we could just like, keep you on the side. Hey, we got a project. But it also helps a lot that RPSAI is also a contributor in the DAO too, as well. Because there'll be plenty of projects where you won't be able to like do proper market making for. There'll be plenty more that you will, 100%. And a lot of frankly, the 30 projects we incubate that, do go through RPSAI, there's gonna be like hundreds more that come through us that aren't even gonna launch on Solana. Maybe they're going to be launching in a complete other ecosystem too. And it's important for us that where we're building this contributor ecosystem, that we're building this ecosystem, people are going to be helping to back projects we bring to market. I want to be very clear, we're only incubating Solana though at ICM.RUN for what it's worth. But there's some really cool stuff happening there.
All right, that's awesome, man. Don, do you have any questions for Mercy while we still have him? He's a busy guy.
Yeah, just one question, because I'm really new to all of this. So for me, and maybe anyone listening that's new to this, and they have a great idea for a project, and they want to get started with ICM, what advice would you give them for launching a project, just starting off?
Yeah, that's a good question right there. I would say, choose your launch pad. You know what I mean? Choose a launch pad to align with what you're doing. I think there's a lot of different range of launch pads that exist, right? It's if you're a very it's hard to answer that question shortly, because the first inclination I have is to ask you 100 more questions, what kind of founder are you? What kind of team is this? Is this a Web2 startup? Do you have a legal entity? What kind of makeup of the project are we here? You know what I mean? And the shorter answer of it is in most cases, if you are an early stage founder and you're looking to tokenize that startup at an early stage, it mostly will be on Believe app, despite what you see on public sentiment, despite what you see on the timeline. If you want to go ICM for ICM project on the Launchpad, Believe app takes the cake. It's not even close. People compare Believe app to Pump Fund, and that's a mistake, because Pump Fund is an everything Launchpad and Believe exclusively ICM. So if you compare ICM on Pump Fund to ICM on Believe app, you'll notice the number skews very grossly. We have seen a lot of Launchpads from not Meteor too, like the Radium ecosystem, like Blood Spawn, try to produce ICM tokens, and it's left a lot to be desired. You know what I mean? And I think for that is because Meteor, it does have the best technology when it comes to fee collection. And it's not even close. I've spoken to teams that have launched on the Bonk ecosystem or ICM, and they've only, they reached 3, 4, 5, 8 million on natural market cap for their teams. And they only collected 30,000 in fees over the course of a whole month from that. I know teams that have launched on Believe app never even bought their own tokens at launch that made close to $100,000 over the course of a month from a market cap that didn't exceed 300K. And people don't understand that yet, and that's okay. That's fine. But I think if you're a new founder and you're looking to launch on a project, you should definitely consider Believe app. There is more hunger for ICM in the Believe app ecosystem than anywhere else. And that's why I was suggesting. And I'm not endorsed by Believe app. God willing, they do one day. We'll see what happens. But I have no financial benefit from Believe app succeeding, much more than they just do have the best ecosystem for ICM at the moment.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Guys,
and follow me on X. You can slide in my DMs. If you're a founder looking to tokenize, and you're not good fit, if you're too early stage for the DAO, I'm always happy to yap and answer questions. You can just slide in my DMs and just say, hey, I'm looking to tokenize. What do you think? I'd be happy to provide that advice to you.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate your time, Mercy. Yeah, like you said, follow ICM.RUN. There's this handle 7BO Mercy. It's great to have you today. Have a good rest of the week and good luck with the launch.
Appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you. Take care.
Peace, everyone.